What's up, guys? This is the Stevie Mac Sports Show, and on this episode, I want to take you back to the game this past Saturday, just a few nights ago, as Michigan beat Rutgers in Piscataway in triple overtime. And I gotta say, the game wasn't pretty by any means, but in some ways it was better. It was better. In some ways, it was exactly what we've been accustomed to seeing this year, but in some ways it was better. And I'll break some of those things down here in just a second, but I want to start with one of the things that was a lot better on Saturday night, and that was Joe Milton versus Cade McNamara. And really, the two almost seem like they're night and day compared to each other, because when you look at Joe Milton and the way he had been playing the past 3 games or so, he just seemed very unsure of himself, very timid, whatever kind of adjective you want to use to describe that. He just seemed like he didn't fully grasp the offense the way that these coaches would have liked him to. And I mentioned that in the episode on Saturday before that game that night. And then enter Cade McNamara, and he looked like the exact opposite. He looked very confident, very comfortable. He made all the right reads that he needed to make. He just made plays when plays needed to be made. And I think he ended up completing about 27 of his passes out of 35, so a very high completion percentage in that game. Also accounted for 5 total touchdowns, 4 of which were through the air passing the ball. But I think even more so than any of that, one of the biggest things you saw from him in that game was his ability to come in and pick up the team and be a leader and be a thing of energy for this team. And that's something, again, that I talked about on Saturday, this team was desperately needing, was just somebody, anything to come in and energize them, whether it be Harbaugh, whether it be, Milton or whoever was going to end up being quarterback in that game. Whoever it was, somebody just needed to do something to give this team some energy. And I think Cade McNamara definitely gave them that in that game, as you saw him fist pumping and celebrating big time after each one of those touchdowns that he accounted for. You even saw guys like Ronnie Bell on that pick play was celebrating the touchdown before they even got into the end zone. And then on that touchdown pass he threw to Nick Eubanks got up and was stomping his feet and throwing his hands around and just looked like he was screaming at the top of his lungs, because they were finally fired up. They finally got that energy that they were looking for. And it was so cool to watch and see them finally playing with that fire that we've been waiting for all season long. And I think that overall, the team came out in the second half and just looked like they found some heart. That's something that, again, I talked about on Saturday, was that this team in general, not just the offense, but the team in general, just looked like they were so sluggish and so down on themselves. They just needed something to give them that heart back and that fire. And whatever happened in the locker room at halftime of that game, they came out in the second half and they found it. And I think a big part of that spark was the 95-yard kickoff return on the opening kickoff of the second half by Giles Jackson. But again, I don't know what was said during halftime of that game, and I'd like to believe that that was a player-led discussion, as we saw some guys walking off the field to the locker room at halftime kind of barking at each other going off the field. So I'd like to believe that that was a player-led thing and the coaches just kind of let them do their thing there. But whatever happened at halftime, it worked. And I think it got to a lot of guys. And like I said, it's about time. So that's some of the good things that I saw on Saturday as well. Another thing that I'll throw in there before I quickly move on is the fact that Hassan Haskins has now pushed himself into that number 1 running back spot. I think it's very clear after Saturday that he is that number 1 running back in that 4-man group that they've been rotating in and out. So Hassan Haskins, I think, moving forward, is that number 1 guy. But again, like I said, moving on, we're going to look at the defense, and I laid into the defense a lot in Saturday's episode, specifically with Don Brown. As I mentioned, you always got to start at the top of that group with the man calling the shots, and that is Don Brown, because really they aren't good, but I think even worse than that, you're not seeing much improvement, if any, from a week-to-week basis. And that's really the thing that gets me most, is the fact that they might not be very good on the defensive side of the ball this year, but they're not really improving either. So that you're seeing a lot of the same issues week in and week out every single game. And that to me is a big, big cause for concern. So just to give you guys some numbers here, in their last 7 games dating back to last season, Don Brown's defenses have given up 24 or more points in each of those games. And this year alone, they've given up the most points scored in a game to the following teams. Wisconsin got 49, Rutgers got 42, Indiana got 38, and MSU got 27 on this defense in those 4 games. And in those 4 games, Michigan this year is 1-3. But on the bright side, if you can call it that, they held Minnesota to their second lowest point total of the season, but they also reached 24 points in that game as Michigan won that season opener 49-24. So I don't know if this is a problem of recruiting on the defensive side of the ball, as people have now begun to question the recruiting on that side of the football, especially in places like the defensive line, or if it's just a question of them not being able to develop said recruits, or maybe it's some, combination of the two. But by the end of Saturday's game, whether it be because of injuries or whatever the case may be, the Michigan defense ended up playing 3 walk-ons across the defense, with Jesse Spade on the defensive line, although he's been there for most of the past 3 or 4 games or so. And for those of you that probably don't know, he is the brother of Wilton Spate, the former Michigan quarterback, but he's also a former walk-on offensive tackle who is now playing defensive tackle and seeing regular snaps there. They also had Adam Shibley come in at linebacker for one of Michigan's linebackers who was hurt in that game, and they had Hunter Reynolds in the secondary along with Dax Hill at safety. And really one of the things that I think surprised a lot of people, or maybe even further disappointed them about this defense, is that these guys, these walk-on guys, are essentially replacing 4-star caliber players, and you weren't seeing really any drop-off in what the defense was doing. There wasn't any glaring hole like, oh, that was clearly Hunter Reynolds' guy that just got wide open behind the secondary, or, oh, Adam Shibley just missed another tackle, or, whatever. There was no drop off, and I think that even further to some people highlighted the fact that this defense, A, isn't very good, and B, I don't think that the coaching and the development and the preparation is really where it needs to be within this group from the coaching staff, whether it be Don Brown or positionally with guys like Sean Nua, Mike Zordich, or whoever the linebackers coach is at this point. The name is escaping me, but I think that this defense obviously needs to be better, and I think that starts with the coaching staff and the coaches on that side of the ball. And I think that it's blatantly obvious to say that there needs to be a change on that side of the football at the end of this season, if not even sooner, if possible. As I mentioned on Saturday, UTSA fired their defensive coordinator at halftime of the week prior. So if it takes something like that happening, something drastic, then I guess at this point I'm all for it. But there does need to come a time for change on that side of the football. But that'll do it for me, guys, on Stevie Mac Sports Show. Excuse me, I'm getting my shows mixed up here. On the Stevie Mac Sports Show. Check out the show on YouTube, Anchor, and Spotify, and a lot more to come here over the next few weeks of college football. I'll also try to touch on some NFL as well, and then as we get tipped off here for college basketball in the next few days, I'll also get into some of that here on the show as well. But thanks for listening, guys.